This morning's guest doesn't have her own website, but she is a WWW, a worldwide woman. You'll meet her coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Bridal House of Charleston at 813 Main Street in the heart of Myrtle Beach. We're focused on the International House for Duke University and its medical center, and we're visiting with its former director and I was about to say Palmetto resident, Palmetto native Carlisle Harvard. Good morning, Carlisle. Thank you so much for coming in. It's former director. That sounds funny. Having grown up and having known you as the director of the International House, it's a little more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
Is that strange to think of?
Yeah.
That's amazing,
It was
Carlisle.
wonderful.
Yeah, that was a great. Had the International House been there a good while before you arrived?
It had. We celebrated the 40th anniversary of International House while I was there.
Is that right?
And it's a very, it's been a growing part of the university and the medical center. There were 400 international students at Duke when I started in 1986, and there were about 2,200 international students.
More than 5 times the size over that 20-year period. Wow. Now that's for the entire university, both undergrad and graduate students. Yeah, that's tremendous. What had actually prompted the International House to be formed there? And was it, had early stages, had they thought about the medical center, or was it just focused on?
It was just focused on the university part, because for the first number of years that I was there even, we dealt only with students. And but there were a growing number of visiting scholars and professors coming to do research or spend a sabbatical. And they were not always getting the help and assistance that we thought Duke should be providing, and that Duke thought should be provided. It kind of depended on which department they were coming to. And we laughed about it at International House. We said some visiting scholars were truly invited and others were merely tolerated. And so the university wanted to be a better, more hospitable. And so they asked us to take that on in the mid-90s.
Okay, sure. So you've been there already a decade when taking on that, and that obviously is a big deal.
It's a big deal,
right? Sure.
Lots of people come to do research or study, or to teach for one course or a little while. And when you arrive in a new place, for anybody, whether you're moving in the United States or moving from abroad, there's a lot to do and a lot to get used to. But when you come, particularly if you're coming from Asia or the Middle East, somewhere that the culture is very different from ours, it just makes a big difference to have somebody help you find housing, tell you how to get your children registered in school, all those little things that have to take place, open a bank account. And we provided that service. So.
Well, there's some great information on Duke's website. I was there early this morning, duke.edu, and I just clicked on International House or search for International House. There's a lot of great information on there for folks who want to learn about it, even our viewers here in the PD in southeastern North Carolina and here on the Grand Strand.
Well, you can imagine how the Internet has changed how we've done our preliminary help for students and scholars. It used to be that we would write an individual letter to each student in their home country and mail it by airmail.
Wow. And
have a carbon copy of that letter in the file. And now, of course, everything's done by email. And we refer to our website and ways that they can find out the kind of things that we do.
And those letters y'all were writing, not to cut you off, Carlisle, were those those were obviously in English, or were they ever in their native language? They were always in English.
Always in English. For a student to be coming to study at Duke, they have to pass a very strict English exam, because all the courses are going to be in English. So that is a prerequisite.
That's a very good point.
People would ask me, how many languages do you speak? And I would say, well, I do German best, English, of course, best, and I do a little German and a little Russian, but no, I have to speak within English when I'm talking to the new students. So, students would be from over 100 countries.
Oh, come on, 100 countries. More than 100 countries. They're represented at the International House. You know, as I see the I House, and there it's constantly referred to as the I House.
Yeah.
Obviously, in my mind, I had the OP, the IHOP on there.
Oh,
had
yeah.
those last two letters, thinking of the International House of Pancakes, of course.
You know, Greg, several years ago we started asking returning students to help with orientation because they knew what the students really needed.
Right.
And we named them our IHOPs, International House Orientation Peers.
Oh, yeah, good.
And so they're the IHOPs. So
I
now we
love
have
it.
graduate IHOPs and undergraduate. So we play on the International House of Pancakes.
I love
thing
it.
as
I
well.
love it. I bet they would like to know that. I
That's
wonder if
right.
they even know about that.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
We could
they'd
get
probably
some
like to know that.
sponsorship for
Absolutely.
some of our...
Good thinking. A
Good
nice thing
idea.
as the former director to be able to still bring some great ideas
Yeah.
back to it. You know, I saw at the website there were some frequently asked questions, and one of the leading question it looks like was, how many international students actually live at the International House,
Yeah.
Carlisle?
If you saw the house, you would know that it does not house students. It is an office. And it's actually a former faculty home.
Is that right?
Along Campus Drive, there are a number of homes that were used by faculty early in Duke's history.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're all offices. And it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Yeah, I was about to say these faculty were
Yeah,
well treated.
yeah,
Yeah.
But it's small now for what we're trying to do, and our hope is that some changes will be made so that International House could have more space.
Now, is this funded entirely by Duke, or are
It
there
is
private
funded-
donations
no,
ever?
It's funded entirely by Duke.
Okay.
The International House is always glad to receive donations,
Good,
and sometimes
yes.
people do make donations that we use for extra programming.
Great.
So,
good.
but we don't count on donations. Yeah.
That's very important. And if a viewer was interested, since this is more or less one of a kind, I don't know if more schools around, obviously was an early leader of that, have more schools, more universities around the country taken on an international house?
International education is a growth industry these
Right.
days. You can imagine with the world shrinking in size and business being such an international
Oh, yeah,
factor.
very right. And the internet, as you talked about.
And
yeah.
international, so it's growing everywhere. Every school will offer the visa services. The visa service is what you have to come and study as a student or to work as a professor.
Right.
And that's very, very important. International House does not do the visa service. Duke has 2 separate offices. And we do all the extra things. Listen to me, we do.
Yeah.
International
For 21
House
years,
does.
that's right. You've done. But we didn't highlight that for viewers. You just stepped away
I
just
did.
2.5 months ago.
1st of
As
October.
the executive director. So literally 70 or so days ago from here, January
Yeah.
10th. That's amazing.
So a lot of schools don't have the staff to do the kind of extra services and programming that International House is able to do, since
Right.
Duke has the 2 separate offices.
Yes.
But we who work and worked at International House, everyone there thoroughly enjoys getting to know about other cultures and
I bet.
people from other places, and that is what makes the work so much fun.
100+ countries. That's a
That's
lot
a lot
of
to
cultures to
learn. That's
learn
right.
there.
That's right.
Carlisle, we wonder how we can pack it all in our minds. Folks that have to be in a setting like that or want to be in a setting like that.
Well, just the interest in somebody's home country
Right.
is enough to put them at ease and to help them realize, hey, I've got a friend here. I don't need to be as stressed as I have been about all the changes that I'm experiencing.
And visiting the website, I saw it's not just you, it's a friend of all ages. You've got a multitude of folks there, both on a volunteer side
That's
as well
right.
as folks who actually work there.
Only 6 staff members, so we
Is that right?
we stay pretty
Okay.
busy,
Yes,
and we
yeah.
work as a team on most things that we tackle, and people enjoy working there.
How exciting, Carlisle. I had opened up and started to stutter there as your ties to the Palmetto State. You're a Palmetto State native, albeit having been in the Tar Heel State for a good while now.
Born and bred in Columbia, South Carolina.
Right, yes. Did you say you were one of 6, Carlisle?
I am.
Wow, where are you in that pecking order?
I was number 3.
Right. If there had been 7, you'd be the middle child, but you're kind of in the middle. You're one of 2 in the
two
middle.
of us in the middle there.
Right.
And spread over 22 years. So
Oh, come on.
my mom and dad
Wow.
had 6 children over a 22-year period. So
That's
I had
amazing.
two siblings in college when the baby was born.
Wow, Carlisle. That's amazing.
And two of my sisters actually live in this area.
Oh, really? Good. What part?
The baby, Lee Piepenbring, is living at Debbie Doo. And Madeline Ritchie and her husband live at Litchfield Beach.
Is that right? And of course, I think you mentioned you all have had a family affair down here annually for about as long as you can remember. Yeah.
My father died fairly young. He was only 58. And my mother decided she was not a shopper.
Right.
And the family enjoyed being together. So instead of doing birthday and Christmas presents for those years, she rented a house at Pawleys Island and then at Litchfield for everybody to come for 2 weeks.
Wow. Very nice.
And we're
for
still
everyone.
doing that.
All six and their siblings and
at
loved
that
ones?
time, it was 6 with spouses, and it's grown to be 6 with children and grandchildren.
So this is a big old house then,
well,
or a couple of...
we're now having to rent more than one house.
Yeah,
but we're still doing that, and it is a wonderful experience.
How exciting, Carlisle. So 2 of your sisters are in right here on the Strand, the extended Strand. You're in the Triangle. Are the other 3 all living?
No, my oldest brother is no longer living, but his widow lives down near Beaufort, South Carolina.
Good. Yeah.
And she still is very involved with our family, and we cherish her. And then I have a brother who's living in Columbia, an attorney there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there's one more.
And a brother in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, I was about to say, so someone left the States, left the Carolinas.
Yeah, he's with Emory Medical Center.
Is that right? Good, yes. Now, you spent some time in Atlanta. I think I saw you were down there. Was there a time where maybe you were even before I saw in '81 you joined the hospice in North Carolina, but before that, were you the bookstore manager at...
I was at Columbia Seminary.
At Columbia Seminary.
That's right.
Do you mind me asking, is that where you and Joe met?
Actually, Joe and I met at Drill High School when his family moved to Columbia. And he was coming to the high school, playing basketball there. And,
yes.
We actually became high school sweethearts.
Oh, come on.
Married after we both finished college. My
father had so you dated during the end of high school and then through college entirely? Was there ever a break during college? Not that you know.
Not
no,
really.
I'm kidding. Yeah, not that you know. No, I'm kidding. Wow. And of course, your husband will be with us tomorrow. We're so excited you all are here at the beach, and obviously my mom's here.
That's
came in town last night. She's at home right now, I'm sure, watching the interview, and she'll be with us tonight at the Republican presidential debates, which are right down the street at the Myrtle Beach Convention Center, which will be tonight on Fox News Channel.
An exciting time for Myrtle Beach and South Carolina.
Yes, it is. It's great for the entire state and for the Carolinas, it being the first in the South primary.
Right.
So we're just excited you all are down here relaxing. As we think about that time there in Atlanta or being there at Columbia, is it Columbia Theological Seminary? Okay, great.
That's where Joe studied for the ministry. So that was our second time in Decatur. We were married in August, and he started seminary in September. And I actually taught school during that period of our life.
Is that right? Yeah.
So math teacher.
Oh, I was about to say, were you an international teacher?
No,
you were teaching math? And that was your major there at, is it Converse College? There in Spartanburg. So you've got deep roots in the Carolinas, Carlisle.
Right. One of 2 math majors in my class.
How
about that?
In the entire senior class? No.
That's right.
There had not been Converse was a teacher's college, right?
Converse was a liberal arts college.
Okay,
and has a strong music
Maybe
school.
Columbia College, I'm thinking of, yes. But it has a strong liberal arts and music background, But no one else had thought about teaching math.
Well, math is just not something that females tend to gravitate toward, but it's what I loved, so that's what I did.
How fascinating. Do you still dabble in that or help your grandchildren out at all, or were you working with banks and back that way?
I pay the bills and manage the finances for our family.
Yes, good. During Joe's starving years, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
how exciting, Carlisle. Did you have a love of the international environment, the international landscape prior to...
Greg, when I look back on my life, it made perfect sense. I was a high school exchange student to Denmark.
Really?
In 1958. So we actually talking with my Danish sister now about trying to do something to celebrate 50 years.
50 years ago this year.
Because we have remained close with that family.
That's
Joe and I visited, and they visited us here. We always bring them to Litchfield Beach when any of our good European friends come, we always make a trip to South Carolina.
How exciting,
Yeah.
Carlisle.
Yeah.
Yes, so there had been that love that began 50 years ago.
50 years ago, and then soon after we moved to Durham, North Carolina in 1980,
Right.
the Presbyterian Church started doing some people-to-people visits between Christians in the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
And I was part of that initial program in 1983, and then helped with subsequent groups that went. So that was quite an
I
experience.
was about to say, was that ever some level of anxiety for anyone other than, I'm sure, all your family members? They were a little anxious about you heading out of the country.
It was an exciting time to be doing that, and you know, it was a wonderful experience because we were mainly visiting with people, church people,
Right.
even during the Soviet period. So we were finding out that they had some of the pretty much the same desires and hopes for their children that we had for ours. And it was a time when we really broke through the fears and the stereotypes that we each had of the other.
Right, right.
So I did that over a 20-year period, and in fact, in April, I'm going to be helping with a similar seminar to Romania to visit with people in the Orthodox Church of Romania and to visit the tourist highlights in that country. So I want to keep doing things at the international level.
That's wonderful.
To build friendship and understanding. That's kind of what I've been about.
Not in 100+ countries, but focusing on one or two or three.
Yes, moving on
You'd
around.
And the travels have been very important. Not only to you, you and Joe both have done some travels together. Did you take your son and daughter on many of those trips?
We have taken. We took them to Europe when they were younger and kind of whetted their appetite. Then they've arranged their own things since then. But I felt like one of the things that my exchange experience did in high school was made me realize it wasn't that big a deal to get across the ocean.
Right.
And so it opened me up to opportunities and interests in other places.
That's very important and something to pass on to others. Surely for those international students, the 2,200 plus now studying in Durham there on the campus, it's a big deal, or 2,000 plus coming over for them, but they've figured out it's not that big a deal. It's something they can do.
That's right.
And in the same way, obviously them interacting with students in Durham reminds the students there, hey, come on over.
Absolutely. They're a real asset to the education. And as you know, the business school, the law school, all have large international programs so that people who are studying are getting a global sense about the topics that they're studying. I would imagine your South Carolina, all your South Carolina colleges and universities would have something similar to International House where citizens can plug in and get involved as a friend in town to students.
Sure. Here in our viewing area, the Coastal Carolina University, Francis Marion University, of course, UNC Pembroke, as well as St. Andrew in Laurinburg, which is here in our viewing area. A lot of very important schools that do, I'm sure, have an international presence.
St. Andrews is where our daughter went.
That's right. Now, does she go by Rebecca or Becky?
She goes by Rebecca now.
By Rebecca now. That's right. Of course, when I was in high school with her, I think she was Becky, but Rebecca, a lot of folks who know her. And am I correct? Is she the youth pastor now, or youth minister there at First Presbyterian Church of Durham?
She is, Greg.
How did she become fall into that trap? I mean, how did she?
It's interesting. Rebecca was very typical teenager. Did a lot of different
Preacher's
things.
kid, right. Oh no, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Well, she was. Let's just say she enjoyed her teenage and college years.
Yeah.
And when she graduated from college, she worked for a year in the St. Andrews area, and then she came back to Durham, and she got involved as a volunteer with the youth program. So she did that for a number of years. And a little over a year ago, when we needed a new youth minister, the committee came to my husband, who is the pastor of the church, and said, Rebecca, we'd like Rebecca to be the interim because she's done this so long and she's good with the youth. And Joe thought, well, this is not appropriate for my daughter to be on staff. So he talked to the people at the Presbyterian office, and they said, well, interim would be okay because that means they're still looking for somebody. It'll be a short time. And later the committee came to him and said, she is doing a really good job.
Gangbuster,
And we really want to keep her. And Joe said, well, it's just not appropriate. And, you know, Joe is, he's past 65. And so the committee chair said, Well, aren't you thinking about retiring before too long? In
Oh,
other words,
come on.
if we
Yeah.
have to choose,
Oh my!
I'm sure.
Wow.
I'm sure it was in
Carlisle.
jest.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was in jest.
but still. Wow.
But anyway, it is working well. We have an associate pastor that Rebecca reports directly to, and
How exciting,
and
Carlisle.
as she said, as Joe said, well, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to be telling her what to do.
Right.
But Rebecca's she's a pretty
She's
strong
a big woman. Yeah,
That's
I
right.
already.
She's a
well,
strong
I mean,
woman.
she knows.
She
She knows her
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's working great.
That's wonderful. We mentioned Rebecca. You all also have a son.
Our son, Banks Harvard, who's recently moved from California back to the East Coast,
That's
and we're
right.
thrilled to have
And
him
he's
back.
living where now, Carlisle?
He's living in Charlotte.
Good.
Yeah, and he was in TV work out west.
That's right. In Palm Springs, I believe. Yeah.
So
I
he's
called
looking for
Pete,
something in the area.
I called Pete Sealer yesterday to tell him to come on by the Bridal House of Charleston this morning to see y'all or to see your husband tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have a chance to come by tomorrow.
Right.
Pete, who you remember Banks worked with
That's
out
right.
in Palm
That's right.
Springs at
Yeah.
KDFX and KECY. And then, of course, he has stayed out there and loved or had stayed out there for quite a while.
Yes, he did.
More than a decade, it
Yeah.
seems like. Yeah, being out there.
You got it. That's right.
You know, it's so fascinating as you think through all those steps. Is the International House there a Duke just for international students, Carlisle?
Good question, Greg. Actually, we really encourage U.S. American students to get involved in our programming because we feel like they add to the experience of the international students and vice versa. And then we have several programs that pull community members in. Mm-hmm. One of the programs that pulls students in the most is we have a language partners program. So a student studying French, Spanish, or now more likely Chinese or Arabic,
right, sure,
can be paired with a student whose native language is that. And the agreement is that they will meet once a week and spend at least 30 minutes speaking in English and 30 minutes in the language, the native language of the student,
right,
which will be helpful to both of them.
Oh yeah, excellent
And then
thinking.
the hope is that they also will say, well, let's go for a movie or let's go to a ball game together.
Right.
That will build a relationship, and they really will learn about each other's cultures as well
Right.
as the language.
Excellent.
And people in town also can plug into that program. We often would have people say, I'm going to have a business trip to Korea. I want to learn a little bit of Korean, and that's great. Mm-hmm. We could pair them with a Korean student or a Japanese student, wherever this trip was going to be. And they could learn a little, but they also were helping the native speaker learn U.S. American slang,
right,
just general things about our culture. So it was a win-win situation.
That has proven to be as valuable as it sounds, I'm sure.
It has.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
that is wonderful. You know, as you visit the website and see, of course, training and workshops, programs at the International House, but page after page, you come for advice, get assistance, discuss a problem, attend cultural events, obviously, borrow household items. It just goes, the list goes
Yeah.
on. Learn about getting involved in the community, go on a shopping trip, come in for a cup of tea. It sounds like it just all went on. Reserve the location for a party or a special
That's
occasion. Did you open up the International House? It
People
sounds
could
like.
reserve the house after 5 on weeknights or on the weekend.
Right.
And it might be that a few of them would get together and use the kitchen and really cook a meal, and the living room had a good TV and all the equipment that you would need to have a party. And so they might have a birthday party, whatever.
Right.
So, yeah,
Wow.
we did do that. And that was a nice thing to be able to offer students, to have a home away from home,
Oh, yes.
to have a
Absolutely.
function. We've had wedding receptions there.
Is that right? At the International House?
students got married.
How
yeah.
exciting. And
Yeah.
probably for a lot of them, over the 40-year period to have, and now it must be even more than 40
Yeah,
years
that's right.
that it's been open, for a lot of them to come back and know the impact of a location like the International House. Obviously, it was the university and the community writ large that really made the impact, but having something, a central location like that, for them probably is memories
Yeah.
that they'll never forget.
Students would, when they come back, often come to visit. So that was nice.
Yeah. For you, Carlisle, the 21 plus years there, what impacted you the most? Did you think you got more out of them, or they out of you?
I know I got more.
Yeah.
I often tell people I had the best job at Duke. Not the best paid job, but the best job. And it was a real pleasure to do that kind of work, to be helpful to people, to learn about their situations, to help them with issues that would come up. You know, sometimes they didn't get treated right at a local business. I remember when Tiananmen Square happened. That's a long time ago. In China, things were really hostile and hot. A student had saved his money and was headed home for the first time during the 3 years he had been at Duke. And he was supposed to fly to Beijing the following day after Tiananmen Square had started. And the travel agency said the planes were not flying, but they would not refund his money. You know, that wasn't right.
Wow. No, of course not.
So
y'all helped make that
right.
right.
We helped make that right.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Carlisle, sorry we've run out of time. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you, my friend.
We're excited to be with your hubby tomorrow. I want to get some good questions to fire at him tomorrow.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with the former director of the International House for Duke University and its Medical Center, Carlisle Harvard. Coming up next. You know, you may not normally think of a house like this. I love those key letters, A in assistance, A in advice, A in advocacy, and support. Those big A's there stepping out, and you think about living in the International House. Carlisle broke it down, not living there, but having that impact, providing the advice, the support for these students. What were 400 students back in '86 when she arrived, now more than 2,000 international students, making a real impact on the residents of Durham, the residents and the members there, the students there at Duke University, and of course at the Medical Center. The impact the International House is making every day is reflected in Carlisle and the entire staff there and all the folks that came in to volunteer to support the international community at Duke University. A special place. Go online to duke.edu and learn more about the International House.